It is a much neater, much more compact design, and has a much smaller footprint. I want to make it a little bit bigger with a little more real estate to hold a few more pedals. So to accommodate more pedals, I'm making 2 rows, which means I'm going to insert a third piece of wood as compared to just 2. So what I'm doing is I've already set my pedals out. I've got an overall length of what's going to be required, and in my particular example it may not be the same as yours, but for me to accommodate my pedals I need 3 of these. These are 1x4s that I got at the hardware store. They're just pine, and I'm going to sand them, I'm going to stain them and shellac them and screw them all together, and hopefully it'll be halfway decent, right? So in my example, this is 19 inches long, so I'm going to cut 3 of these. For the feet, which are like little rails that run along each edge underneath, I needed to figure out what the length was going to be for those rails. So in order to do that, you got to know what this is. And because you're going to have 3, you're going to have to multiply that by 3. So even though these are considered 1x4s, they're actually measuring 3.5 inches. So 3.5 inches, I know I kind of did this a long way, but I'm slow, whatever. 3.5 inches wide, 3 times, that's 10.5 inches. And then in between the 3 boards, I want to make sure I have enough gap so that I can thread any wires that I need to thread underneath that I'll run to a power supply. So if you've got 2 gaps, you want a 1/2 inch gap between each pair. That's 1 inch, so you got 11.5 inches total for your length. This would be your width. Going this way would be your length. So what I did was, if I know that 11.5 is my total length, then I went ahead and just measured from this line 11.5, knowing that this is 3.5 inches wide. Honestly, there's no rhyme or reason. I just figured that I'd leave the low end about 1 inch, which will leave me about 2.5 inches on the opposite side. And you just measure 1 inch on this end, measure 1 inch on this end, and then connect the 2 lines. And then once I cut this board out, then I'll separate it by that line right there to give you my 2 feet. Let's get started. I've already cut my first board, so what I did was just use it as a template to mark my next 2. Basically, the 2 feet that I marked off of that one piece, I've cut those, right? So now we've got this and the matching one on the other side. And there is, again, this is like no hard and fast rules. If you're a person that needs like dimensions, I would say maybe at the end of this I'll do a brief sketch and show you my dimensions, okay? But this is basically 1 inch tall on this end. This is 2.5 inches, because this is based off of the 1x4s, which are in truth 3.5 inches wide, right? And then I just wing dinged it to see what worked well with my 19-inch wide pieces of wood. 16.5 inches from outside to outside is basically what I did. And then when I realized from the gentleman's video that I saw, he had a plate that he put in front here. So what I'm gonna do is put this right here, and I will sand all this so that it will behave and meet a little bit better. Maybe, we'll see. But yeah, you just glue and then screw after you make your pilot holes with your drill, and then you've got kind of a cage right here to protect a little bit, give a little bit of stability to these feet here. I just want you to keep in mind, this is for somebody who loves to make music, who wants to get back to the business of making music. So what I'm making here is more functional than it is something to be aesthetically pleasing to the eye, but I'm trying to make something that is decent, that's not overly complicated, and that's very cheap, right? So what I did was I basically went and knocked off the corners, and I looked for any burrs or anything, because when you're toting this thing around, you don't want to get a splinter, right? So you just try to hit all the high spots. And, you know, if you feel like trying to bevel an edge to take off some of the sharp pointy corners, that's fine, whatever. It doesn't matter, it's to taste. What I used, I just found a piece of, what is this? 120 grit. And I had a piece of scrap wood that I chopped off earlier, and I just wrapped it around there and raked it down all the flat sides and the edges and the corners. And now that all the pieces are ready to go, we're going to go ahead and start with the process of staining next. Here we go. So this is a red mahogany stain, and I am just putting copious amounts on my wood planks for ample coverage. And once I get them completely painted, then I will wipe it off, probably wait a little bit, maybe put on another coat, we'll see. It's what's inside your heart that matters, so you need to find something that you're passionate about and find some light in that. So even if it's a crummy weather day, you can still have a fun time doing what you love, right? Roughly about an hour, hour and a half has passed, and these planks have had sufficient time to dry. And that's one of the recommendations. Before you use any kind of polyurethane, it's recommended that you need to let these things get good and dry before you seal them up, because that can create problems, and we're trying to avoid problems. So anyway, for this particular product, it's recommending a 3-coat minimum. Whether we're actually going to do that, I'm not sure. This is a semi-gloss water-based polyurethane, and I'm just, as the instructions call, all right, first coat is done. So yeah, that's the sound of rain. It's about an hour and a half later. Thought I would just come back out here and check on my planks and see how they were looking. And they're a little bit, tiny bit damp to the touch, but that milkiness that you see has had completely gone away. So I figured, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and put on El Coto Segundo. Anyway, I'm sure there's about a million things that you would rather be watching than this little bit of drudgery work. But see, the whole thing is that when you get done, it's something that is going to last. At least for a while, right? I could have left this unvarnished, unsealed. But what happens to something if you don't protect it? You know, it gets beaten up. And all kinds of decay sets in. That's why we try to do things to protect our homes and protect our cars and protect our bodies and protect our families. So it's important that you take just a few extra steps to invest into, you know, your work, if you can. You know, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you don't need it for very long. Sometimes it's just for a moment in time, and you'll be through with it, and you won't have to deal with it anymore. But in a case like this, you know, this is your pedal board, man. And every time you look down at it, you're going to see your handiwork. And it doesn't have to be pretty, but it is something that's going to tell a story. Every time you look down at it, it's going to stare back up at you. And it's going to reflect something that you can take pride in, or something that you rushed through and was kind of slipshod and haphazard about it. And now that's going to remind you every time you look at it. So, you know, little things like this that don't take anything but a little bit of extra time and a little bit of patience can go a long way. Hey, it's a new day. There are a lot of birds at play today, so it is a glorious day today. Hallelujah. But so I went out to the shed this morning and I put a third coat on, and I went ahead and decided to bring them outside of the shed into the sunlight to kind of bake a little bit. Hopefully maybe kind of expedite this curing process of this third coat which I put on. And hopefully here in a little bit we'll be able to get the cracking on the assembly, and hopefully that will go off without a hitch. Okay, so I'm going ahead and move this operation indoors just because the sunlight was not being real cooperative with shadows and lighting and everything, so I just moved it in here. It's a little bit easier to see what I'm doing. As you can see, I have already begun the assembly process. Basically, I took the one narrow long bracket, attached it to the wide end of the feet, right? And that's how this thing is going to sit. And right now, it's a little bit wobbly, but hopefully that will work itself out. So let me go ahead and put this screw in right here. It's a little bit better. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is start putting my planks. And initially I was really concerned with trying to make sure that I had this thing all mathematically aligned, and it's not the end of the world if you don't. You can wing-ding this for the most part. Alright, so here's what I've done. Basically all I did was I put the main bracket on the feet, laid that here on the table, then I took my planks and I just laid my planks out. And originally I was trying to measure out lengths and thicknesses and widths and so forth, and I thought, wow, I'm not trying to go back to high school, so I just laid it out what looks symmetrical to my eye. Okay, and that's really all you need to do. It's not complicated. You can overcomplicate this if you like, if that's what you like to do. I don't. I'm trying to get back to making music. That's where my heart is. So, but I want to make this, you know, strong and durable and try to make it right. But basically what I've done is I've laid my planks out with the gaps that I want, with the overhang that I like, and then I started to, actually, I have a headlamp on. I don't know if you can tell that, but because I want to see my feet in between the gaps really good. So I put my hand down on the board here, grab my trusty pin, and then I just basically eyeballed where I want to drill my pilot holes. Okay, and once I've established that, then I can go ahead and drill my pilot holes, and then of course I'll screw it all together. All right, next step. Okay, so we've assembled it. Look, there's my original math. Anyway, I got these from the hardware store. These are the little rubber feet. 4 come to a pack with the screws. And again, this is not original. I mean, what really is? But the gentleman's video that I saw where he used the 2-planker, that's what I'm calling it now. Mine's a 3, his was a 2. You don't have to get this brand. I've seen some that are gray, some that are black. I would have actually preferred to have gotten like a black but at the hardware store, I was limited to what they had to offer, and that's what I ended up getting. So, what we're going to do is we're going to put a foot there. We're going to do one right here. We're going to do one approximately there. And we're going to do one right here. We're almost home. Now, the one thing that we have yet to do, which needs to be addressed, is the Velcro. How else are you going to get these pedals to stay on the board? Out of all the videos I've seen, I think that this is probably the best route to take. So I am still on a learning curve here. Originally, I had intended to put down strips of Velcro across the board, and consulted a few more videos. And again, this goes to taste, right? It's up to you. You do whatever you like. But at the end of the day, what I discovered is that rather than cover up all of your wood, you can actually just put Velcro down where the footprint of your pedal is going to be. All right. And then what you can do is, as you accessorize and get more pedals and so forth, you can take that pedal off, and then where that loop portion of the Velcro was for that pedal, then you can actually get it to peel up by freeing up the adhesive by using a hair dryer, or in this case, a heat gun. And we have a heat gun, and I'm going to use that to try to apply the hook portion of the Velcro to the bottom of my pedals. And one of the things that I want to share with you that I discovered, and it's kind of a, should be a no-brainer, but pedals usually come with little rubber feet on the bottom of the corners. This right here, for example. Man, you can't see that. Maybe you can see that. Can you see that right there? And then you got some that are bigger, like on the bottom of my volume pedal, or my Strymon Blue Sky, you know, or my Pog. So if you're going to actually get it to make contact with the surface of the pedal board, you need to remove those feet, and they're basically attached by just an adhesive. And if you stick a pocket knife up underneath there, you can usually pry it off. And that's all I did. I just pried it off with my pocket knife. So now you have a flat surface. So first things first, I'm going to try one of these off camera, and then once I've realized I've either made a dreadful mistake or that it actually works pretty good, then I'll come back and I'll do the second one with you. Alright, so that worked pretty well. So that's what I'm going to do. Basically, this is the first pedal that I'm putting Velcro on. I'm putting the hook side on the bottom of the pedal, and then I'll put the loop or the fuzzy side on the pedal board itself. But because this particular pedal is so big, I'm going to put two strips. I've put one already on there. I'm getting ready to, I've already pre-cut two hook strips that are the length that I need, right? And if it's on a roll, a lot of times it's kind of got bends in it and stuff, so when you heat it up, one of the benefits is it'll help straighten it out a little bit, which will make it a little bit more easier to work with. And I tell you what, these corners are going to be the death of me. Alright, and this is like actual Velcro brand Velcro. In the video that I saw, the guy who was demonstrating this principle recommended using actual Velcro brand Velcro. So anyway, so the thing that you also want to do is I don't want to say use touch because you don't want to burn yourself or get this stuff to stick to your hands and then it's going to melt your skin. But you can check periodically as you're heating it up. And don't touch the business end of a heat gun after you've cut it off, because you'll find out real quick just how hot it is. Okay. I think that's sufficient. What it also does too is it loosens up the adhesive so that it adheres to your pedal a little bit better. This is interesting. So, yeah. There you go. So that's done. All right. We're going to go ahead and do the rest of the pedals and then we'll come back. I felt it was a better fit to just put sticky stuff where something sticky is going to be. And so here's all the pedals. You know, this, I've turned them upside down so you can see I've got the hook. Now this right here is not a pedal. It is a little box of screws that I used for some kitchen work earlier. But that is going to be a substitute for a little mini tuner, a little poly tuner that I'm getting. It's going to be probably coming close to my birthday. And then this is not going to be in the pedal board at all. It's actually a mic pedal. But, as I said in the beginning of this video, a very good friend of mine suggested that I keep in mind building the pedal board with a pedal down the road that you may want to acquire. So don't lock yourself into just the pedals that you currently have. So this is actually going to go away. But now I have this space, all this real estate right here that I can use for another pedal down the road, right? Which I think is a fantastic idea. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the loop section. This would be the nice soft side here. And I'm going to basically try to match roughly the dimensions of the hook portions on the bottom of the pedals. And where I have them now is basically where I want them to go. So my strum is going to go here. My delay is going to go here. Pod 2 is going to go here. Volume pedal for swells is going to go here. The OCD full tone is going to go here. And now I just need to make sure that I put matching Velcro where these pedals are currently situated. Okay, that was like half a second for you to wait, but that was actually like 3 minutes of me trying to get this thing to behave. So in the other video, which you may or may not have already seen, basically he measures off a comparable length of loop to match basically what you have already on the bottom of your pedal with the hook. And I did that, but I wanted to make sure that I'm gonna not put hoop where there's a gap. And I know that I made that gap substantially wider than the gap itself, but I don't have x-ray vision, so when I put this thing down, I want to make sure that I clear it. So that's basically what I've done. I put the hook on earlier, then I measured off the hoop portion, and then I cut out a portion where the gap is going to be in between planks and made it a wider gap than the actual gap itself. And then I go and I just mash down, actually eyeball it to make sure you're clearing as best as you can. And then mash down. And that's what he did in his video. and hopefully it'll work in mine. But that's what we're going to do. And by doing that, the theory is you just have Velcro where the pedal is. Now you can still see the wood finish in between my other pedals. So we're going to go ahead and try this and get it done with all the other pedals, and then we'll come right back. Okay, so I just want to show you a quick little trick. Something I discovered, when you've got this loop and you're trying to pry the plastic piece off the back of the Velcro to get to the adhesive to reveal it, it can get really frustrating. So what I ended up trying to do was carefully, and I did it off camera, I'm running out of corners. There. Okay. Just got to be persistent. You'll get it. All right, moving on. So that's pretty much the whole video. Here is the diagram. Check it out, rewind it if you need to, and here's just a couple of finished photographs to kind of show you the finished product. I think it turned out pretty good. And I'll show you one more shot here of the diagram, all the materials, dimensions, everything you need. You can stop it right here and copy it all down if you need to. If you made it this far, congratulations. Hope you have a great recording experience.
Shalom. This